Rain tore sideways across the cracked tarmac as the klaxon screamed over the base. Radar techs scrambled, ground crews froze. And 30,000 feet above them, a rogue stealth drone broke formation and turned inland, its transponder silent, its profile near invisible. No one could scramble in time. No one, except the woman with oil on her cheek and a forgotten fighter tagged for scrap. "Flight deck shut, Evelyn," called a voice over the intercom, but Evelyn Ward was already strapping herself into the Ancient. F-5 Tiger, fingers flying across switches the mechanics hadn't touched in years. She didn't answer. She didn't have time. The drone was inbound. The range tower didn't see what she saw. The hangar lights blinked red. She opened the throttle. Evelyn wiped her brow with a grease-stained glove and stared down the rusted fuselage of the old Tiger, Model 2215C, parked at the edge of the compounds. Boneyard, the fighter looked like a museum reject. Paint chipped, aileron frozen. Power coupling bypassed with an old medic's clamp. She'd been fixing it after hours for months. Not because anyone asked her to. Because she could. Because it was hers once before the tags changed. Before the new systems and the new kids and the nicknames. Scrap Queen, they'd started calling her. Gearhead Barbie. She kept her mouth shut. She always did. No one here knew what she used to fly, or why she stopped. They just knew she calibrated drones and ran logistics and sometimes patched up the newer recruits when their stunts ended in sprains. But Evelyn remembered everything. Every maneuver, every radar signature, every lesson from her father, who taught her how to fly by feel and outthink machines. And from her mother, who told her no engine would ever be loyal, but tools could still love you if you respected them. So she worked, cleaned, tuned. And she waited. The facility was remote, tucked between low desert ridges and scrubland. No one bothered to map. Officially, it was a test hub. Unofficially, it trained private response teams in interception, crisis logistics, and airborne asset recovery. On paper, Evelyn was a systems calibration specialist. In practice, she was the girl. You called when no one else answered. Today, they'd ignored her entirely. "Tactical asset broke off," Commander Greer said, glancing at the comms console. "Shadow signature 01 is not responding. It's a glitch. Tech team will sort it." She wanted to speak. But Greer didn't see her. He rarely did. His attention remained on the tall blonde who'd arrived last week in shiny boots and a crisp tactical vest. Logan, or Lara, something polished. Evelyn had already forgotten. What she hadn't forgotten was the way Logan ignored the hangars completely. No love for airframes. Only for the simulations. By the time the red warning spread across the display, Evelyn had already moved. "That's not a glitch," she muttered, heading for the back hangar. "That thing's hunting." The Tiger's cockpit was damp from morning dew, but Evelyn moved like she was home. Every switch had been rewired by her hands. The old glass readouts replaced with salvaged HUD overlays. The comms panel she'd stripped from a wrecked Intel drone. Even the ejection seat harness had been custom stitched. She climbed in, shut the canopy, and ran the startup sequence blind. "Ward, what the hell are you doing?" The tower blared. She toggled mute. Power surged. Fuel hissed into the lines. The engines woke up angry, loud, guttural, and proud. The old bird was alive. And it still remembered her. No time for diagnostics. No time to wait. She hit the throttle. The hangar doors didn't open. So she blew them apart with the Tigers. Retrofitted forward thrusters. The plane roared onto the tarmac, up the taxiway, and into the open sky before anyone could react. At 30,000 feet. The rogue drone swept wide around restricted airspace, tracking low radar, high recon, invisible, autonomous, and not under anyone's control. Below it, Evelyn streaked through cloud breaks, chasing nothing but a flicker on her HUD. She was alone up here. No backup, no authorization. No weapons beyond a reinstalled Vulcan cannon and one air-to-air missile she loaded manually, but Evelyn didn't need perfect odds. She just needed proximity. The drone didn't notice her, but she noticed it. A strange shimmer, just beyond the contrail line, then a sudden dip. Course correction. The AI was aware now. The rogue asset had spotted her. She tilted the Tiger into a controlled spin. It followed. Who authorized that launch? Greer barked. No one answered. The base scrambled to patch visuals from recon towers. But Evelyn was too fast. The Tiger's transponder was dead. The feed showed only intermittent heat spikes. Ghosts on radar. Until someone said, "Ma'am, we have a visual. She's engaging." Back in the tower, silence fell. Then gasps. Because Evelyn's Tiger was weaving circles around a drone designed to kill at range and flee at Mach 2. It wasn't fleeing now. She dove. The drone responded instantly, switching from recon mode to evasive. Action. Twin rotors angled. Thrusters surged. Evelyn flipped inverted. The Tiger rattled but held. Her gloved fingers danced across the stick. Every vibration told her something. Pressure, drag, fuel ratio, airspeed. She saw the kill window. And in that moment, she remembered her mother's voice. When the machine doesn't blink, you must. She throttled down. The drone overshot, arcing wide. She banked hard, lined up the missile, and fired. Back at base, Greer whispered. She tagged it. The drone spiraled, black smoke trailing. Then a blossom of flame, but Evelyn didn't pull up. Where is she? Someone asked. The feed geo, ITCHE. No response. Then dash static. Then her voice. Target neutralized. Returning to base. If someone could clear runway 2, that'd be great. I'm a little low on brakes. When she landed, the base was waiting. Greer stood with his arms crossed. Logan beside him, expression unreadable. Evelyn opened the canopy and climbed down, wiping her face. That drone was ours, Greer said flatly. Classified. Evelyn looked him in the eye. Not anymore. He hesitated. Then, you're grounded, she shrugged. Then you better ground the bird too. Because it only flies with me. Behind them, Tex approached the Tiger in awe. Is that ... avionics from an Intel drone? Where'd she even get that missile rail? Did she build a hybrid cockpit? Greer turned away, furious, but shaken. Logan lingered. You ever fly in combat? She asked. Evelyn smiled. Not officially. She was back in the hangar by dusk, cleaning the Tiger. Hands steady. A knock on the frame. Logan, we need to talk. The drone wasn't just rogue. It was rerouted, spoofed, from inside. Evelyn nodded slowly. I figured. It didn't fly like a ghost. It hunted like a pilot. Logan watched her. You're not just a tech. You're legacy, aren't you? Who trained you? She didn't answer, but in the dim reflection of the fuselage, her father's flight patch was stitched to her undershirt. The base would never see her the same, nor would the people who sent that drone. Because somewhere out there, someone was testing more than machines. They were testing loyalty, speed, and silence. And they hadn't accounted for Evelyn Ward. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. The morning sun cut through the hangar's gloom in sharp shafts of light, illuminating streaks of soot across Evelyn's flight goggles. Engines still smoldered from yesterday's sortie, and the base's corridors buzzed with tension, whispers of a rogue pilot and a phantom drone ricocheting off every wall. She stepped onto the tarmac, boots echoing on concrete. Her strides were measured, each one a silent testament to the storm brewing within her. Behind her, the Tiger sat, its frame scarred but unbowed, awaiting maintenance. Around her, mechanics and officers exchanged furtive glances. The air smelled of jet fuel and anxiety. Cold open hook, In less than 24 hours, Evelyn Ward had broken every rule, humiliated command, and shot down a state-of-the-art stealth drone, all with a fighter. Labeled Scrap, the base commander's voice crackled over the intercom. All personnel to briefing room. Before cutting to static, Evelyn barely registered it. She was already too deep into her own storm. Backstory thread. Evelyn moved through the hangar, like a conductor guiding a symphony of steel and circuitry. Her fingertips brushed over the Tiger's fuselage, recalling every midnight oil she poured into rewiring its ancient systems. Her father's voice played in her mind. Trust the bird, Evelyn. Trust yourself more. Those words had led her into the cockpit and beyond regulations she once revered. She paused at a maintenance bay where Sergeant Diaz was cataloging parts. He glanced up, eyes wide. "Ma'am, they're waiting for you. Conference room B." He tried to smile, but the corners of his mouth trembled. Evelyn nodded and moved on. She didn't need sympathy or shock. She needed answers, and she'd get them, even if she had to pry them from cold steel. Inciting incident. Inside the briefing room. Screens looped grainy footage of the drone's final moments. Trailing smoke, a flash of flame, then a silent descent. The room was packed. Intelligence officers, tactical leads, and civilian contractors who looked more surprised than angry. Commander Greer stood at the front, arms folded. He cleared his throat. "Lieutenant Ward, please explain your actions." His tone held accusation like a coiled spring. All eyes turned to Evelyn. Her heart pounded. She tapped the table, adjusting her stance. Asterisk, the drone was compromised. Its override signal came from an internal feed. It wasn't following authorized vectors. I intercepted because it posed an imminent threat to civilian air traffic. Murmurs swept the room. Greer's eyes narrowed. Asterisk, how did you determine that? You weren't cleared to chase it. You risked a national asset. She cut him off, voice calm. Asterisk, a malfunctioning drone that hunts like a weapon is no asset. I have 6 years of drone intel calibration. The signature shift was deliberate. Commands disguised under our protocols. Someone here rerouted it. Silence. She let that hang, crisis and reveal. From the back, a data specialist stepped forward, holding a tablet. Asterisk, ma'am, we cross-referenced your HUD logs with internal feeds. The command override matches a console in Security Block C timestamp, 3:17 hours. Gasps, Greer's jaw clenched. Asterisk, Block C is off-limits. That's classified. No one but senior command has clearance. Evelyn felt a ripple of triumph. Asterisk. Exactly. The breach was inside. Greer slammed a fist on the table. The tension snapped like a snapped cable. Asterisk. This is sabotage. Someone tried to kill us. Her gaze swept the room, landing on Logan at the sidearms crossed. Expression unreadable. And they almost succeeded. She said softly, resolution and reflection. The doors burst open as technicians ushered in the remains of the downed drone. Its plating bore scorch marks and twisted panels proof of Evelyn's dogfight. The silhouette of shattered circuits lay like wreckage on display. Evelyn stepped outside, into the harsh light. She closed her eyes, breathing in the acrid tang of jet smoke. Around her, the base reoriented. Security patrols tightened, protocols updated. Trust fractured. In her hand, the commandeered override chip nestled like a dark promise. Whoever had spun that drone loose would soon learn that Evelyn Ward never flew blind. Logan approached, voice low. Asterisk, you're going to need allies. Evelyn opened her eyes, sunlight glinting off her goggles. And I know just where to start. End of Part 2. Reminder, drop it if you've ever been underestimated. Rain returned by nightfall. Not the hard, slashing kind from the day before, but a persistent drizzle that made the hangar lights smear into halos and left everything smelling like ozone and copper. Evelyn sat cross-legged on a folding chair. Inside Bay 7, soldering a cracked avionics board by hand. Her sleeves were rolled to the elbows, revealing narrow wrists and a series of faint scars from years of precise, unglamorous work. She wore the same jumpsuit she had when she climbed into the Tiger because no one had told her to change, and she wasn't the type to ask. Outside, the compound stirred restlessly. Security patrols doubled, faces changed at checkpoints, and overhead, satellite comms blinked sporadically. They were being watched by someone far beyond the jurisdiction of Commander Greer. Cold open hook at 2:06 hours. A second drone signature ghosted across the compound's outer radar, then vanished. Evelyn noticed, but this time, she didn't fly, she listened. Backstory thread. The soldering iron hissed as she completed the last circuit. Her hands were steady. Evelyn didn't drink, didn't dream, didn't dare unwind. The old habits stayed repetitive tasks, midnight repairs, silent calculations in her head as if anticipating an emergency no one else saw coming. Her father had trained her for patterns. A pattern out of place is a warning. 3's a threat. 4's a trap. This was number 2. And it wasn't random. She set the panel aside and walked the perimeter of the hangar. The Tiger sat under a tarp now, roped down with emergency clamps. Its nose bandaged where debris from the hangar door had scraped the paint. Her fingers brushed the patch on her shoulder, a stitched flight emblem long out of regulation. Behind her, someone cleared their throat. Logan, you haven't slept, Logan said, not a question. Neither have you, Evelyn replied, inciting incident. Logan stepped inside, holding a tablet and an expression that finally cracked the polished indifference she'd worn since arrival. 2 hours ago, a signal spike was logged in the northern ridge, same spectrum as the first drone. But there's no transponder, and it didn't return to its last known vector. Evelyn crossed her arms. It's not surveillance. They're probing response windows. Exactly, Logan said. She stepped closer. There's more. The flight code used on the override chip, it's not ours. It mimics Allied clearance. But the encryption maps to a private node off-grid, Southeast Asian subnet, barely traceable. Someone's using Ghost credentials to test our blind spots. Evelyn absorbed this, calculating. A PMC? Logan shook her head. Smarter, someone with clearance and a long game. Evelyn exhaled slowly. Her instincts were screaming now. I need access to the control stack. That's Greer's office. Then we'll go through the back. Crisis and reveal. The command center was a multi-tiered structure with steel grates and high-set observation windows. Greer kept his access logs in a side server level 2 clearance required. Evelyn had built systems more secure than this back when she was 22 and still trying to prove herself to people who only saw her as a pilot with an engineering hobby. They entered through an auxiliary data tunnel, Evelyn popping the latch with a stripped security card and a calibrated RFID spoofer. Logan followed, impressed but silent. Inside, Evelyn pulled up the raw logs, packet timestamps, user access, shells, command lines. One caught her attention. Delta 3 string, she murmured. It's embedded inside the drone's flight code. It reroutes authority checks through a dummy echo on the main relay. It mimics protocol, Logan said. It overwrites protocol, Evelyn corrected. And whoever wrote this isn't just testing drones. They're testing pilots, responses, latency. She turned the monitor. This is bait. A faint alarm pulsed, not an external breach. Internal movement supply hangar 4. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. They're already here. They moved fast. Evelyn and Logan exited through the east corridor, bypassing security who still thought this was a tech issue, not an infiltration. At hangar 4, the outer doors were sealed, but not locked. They crept inside. A tall figure in a black jacket was hunched over a flight console plugging a device into one of the relay stacks. A second figure stood watch, Logan drew her sidearm. Evelyn did not. She stepped forward, boots crunching. Grit, you forgot to spoof the time drift, she said evenly. Your upload created a half-second lag in the local ComsNet. That's how we found you. The figure straightened. It was Wexler. Supply chief, former drone engineer. His mouth curled. I wondered when you'd notice. Logan advanced. On the floor. Now, but Wexler didn't drop. He reached for a side panel. Evelyn lunged. Her shoulder hit him before he could trigger the switch. They tumbled. The device clattered across the floor. Gun drawn. Logan covered them both. Wexler spat, blood in his teeth. You're too late. It's already in the air. Resolution and reflection. They dragged Wexler into holding. The device he'd been using was a signal piggyback node designed to hijack any outbound drone. Relay within a 20-mile radius. But his words echoed in Evelyn's skull. It's already in the air. She ran, back to the Tiger. The tarp came off. Fuel lines rechecked. Avionics hotwired. Inside the cockpit. Evelyn bypassed the tower link and pulled up open sky telemetry. There it was. A fast-moving shadow across the lower stratosphere. No transponder. Heading straight for a civilian transport. Lane, she keyed the throttle. Ward, you're unauthorized, barked Greer over the comms. She didn't answer. She climbed 20,000 feet and rising. Evelyn locked onto the ghost drone. Its flight path jagged, erratic, but deliberate. It was mimicking a failure cascade forcing. ATC to reroute other aircraft. Clearing space. For what? Then she saw it. 2 other drones, smaller, faster, approaching in flanking formation. This was not a test. This was an op. Evelyn whispered to herself. You wanted a legacy, Dad? Here it is. She rolled left, climbed high. The Tiger's frame screamed. But it held. Showtime. Drop a if you've ever had to act while others froze. Part 4 coming soon. The sky was a burning vein of dust-colored turbulence as Evelyn cut through the atmosphere at Mach 1.6. The Tiger's frame groaned under the strain. Altitude warnings blinked amber across the patchwork HUD she'd soldered together from Battlefield. Salvage and stubborn hope. Below, 3 commercial aircraft rerouted on emergency vectors. Above, the rogue drones pivoted in formation. Hunting. They were no longer running simulations. Cold open hook. Evelyn Ward was now the only human pilot in contested airspace, and the only thing standing between 3 autonomous threats and a passenger route full of civilians. Backstory thread. There had been a time, years ago, when Evelyn had dreamed of fleet command. When she first wore her father's flight patch on a fresh cadet uniform, she thought flying was about freedom. Later, she learned it was about pattern recognition, memory, and restraint. She learned to hold her tongue when shouted at by men half her ability. She learned to triple-check every mechanic's signature. She learned not to cry the day her mother's medevac crashed over the Adriatic and nobody called it sabotage. She also learned that real flying didn't happen in simulations. And now, streaking across the sky in a fighter older than some of her squad mates, she finally felt like herself again. Inciting incident. The rogue drone's configuration had shifted. Its profile now suggested close-range combat, narrowed wingspan, tightened vectoring, payload ports open. The 2 smaller drones that flanked it fanned out, like shepherd dogs driving prey. Only this time, the prey was a 747 rerouted to 31,000 feet. Evelyn keyed into the Tiger's last-ditch radar scan, rotating manually. She angled into the drone's rear vector. Come on, come on. Show me your teeth. The drone rolled right. Evelyn rolled with it, keeping the sun at her 6. Her hands gripped the stick loosely, trusting the machine, trusting her build. Trusting the feel of the wind. One of the smaller drones dropped. Fast. It banked straight at her. You want me? Fine, let's see how well your code adapts. Crisis and reveal. The Tiger bucked under strain as Evelyn pulled a tight corkscrew downwards. using gravity to slingshot velocity. The first drone stayed with her, firing a kinetic burst too early, too wide. She laughed, overcompensating. "You're learning. Good for you." Below, the second drone circled toward the passenger jet, still distant, but closing fast. Evelyn clicked into auxiliary comms. "Control, this is Ward. You've got a triple threat incursion in Quadrant 17. One drone flanking. Eastbound Sévère. I'm taking primary aggressor. I need permission to engage." Silence. Then static. Then Greer. "You are not cleared. Return to base." She shut off the comm. And fired. The first drone burst into a fireball. The Tiger flipped out of the dive, looped back toward the transport corridor. On the ground, Logan stared at the feed from the temporary recon tower. The drone Evelyn had downed spun in flaming arcs toward the ocean. The second was out of range of base countermeasures. Greer was pacing. "We need to ground her, now." "She's the only one who can stop this," Logan said. "She's a liability." Logan turned. "She's the reason 221 lives are still airborne." "That drone was a decoy, the one she's going after now?" "It's carrying something bigger." Greer paused. "How do you know?" "Because she said so." In the sky, Evelyn approached the flanking drone. It hadn't noticed her yet. It was focused on the transport lane, not on the ancient Tiger closing from behind. She exhaled, slowed her breathing. Mother's voice again. "The most dangerous thing in a war zone is someone who listens before they strike." She toggled to cannon mode. Closed in. Fired. The drone jerked. Its right stabilizer exploded. It spun out, not destroyed, but crippled. It crashed into the ocean seconds later. She still had one left. Resolution and reflection. The final drone had climbed high, circling like a hawk above the entire airspace theater. Evelyn angled toward it. And stopped. Because suddenly, it stopped too. It hovered. A drone that size wasn't meant to hover. A hatch opened on its undercarriage. Evelyn squinted. Zoomed. Something detached. Small. Fast. A pod? Her radar screamed. Not a pod. A jammer. Her HUD blinked. Then blacked out. All systems offline. The Tiger spiraled. Evelyn swore and reached under the seat. Manually toggled the power ISOLATO. R. Nothing. Not yet. The wind howled. Altitude plummeted. And still she worked. No panic. Only movement. Hands on bolts. Boots braced. Mouth steady. Then dash ignition. The Tiger roared back. She flipped upright. Eyes locked on the final drone. This isn't your sky anymore. This story's just heating up. Drop a if you've ever fixed what they said was unfixable. Part 5 coming soon. The Tiger's engines coughed as Evelyn leveled out, flying blind save for her instincts and what little wind resistance told her. The cockpit was still dark, systems attempting to reboot as emergency protocols struggled against the aftershock of the drone's jamming pulse. She reached under the dashboard panel and flipped a breaker she'd installed months ago, back when no one thought she'd fly this aircraft again. The HUD flickered, static, then green. Cold open hook. In the space of 27 seconds, Evelyn had free-fallen 5,000 feet in a powerless fighter and clawed her way back into combat airspace by sheer will and a circuit bypass. Backstory thread. Most pilots feared losing instruments. Evelyn didn't. Not because she was reckless, but because she had flown blind before. On the last night of her father's life, the altimeter failed during an Arctic storm training sortie. He didn't panic. He taught her then. In the dark, the aircraft talks. Feel it. Trust it. Fly it like it's a living thing. That night, they landed with half a wing and zero fuel. She never forgot the silence of that descent or the thunder in her chest. That said, she was alive because of instinct, not protocol. Today felt the same. Inciting incident. The final drone had stopped moving. Hovering at 36,000 feet, it rotated slowly, as if scanning or waiting. Evelyn's comms burst back online, just enough to ping Logan. Logan, you reading this? I see it. It's not firing. What is it doing? Testing something. Evelyn narrowed her eyes, or deploying. A hatch opened. 2 canisters dropped. Below them, a second signal appeared, then a third. Oh no. Evelyn's fingers danced. They're not drones. They're payloads. That thing's a motherbird. Crisis and reveal. The canisters split in midair, deploying miniature gliders with swarm capabilities. She'd only seen prototypes in theory. Low-profile autonomous threat disruptors designed to seek out wireless frequencies, jam local comms, and simulate tactical chatter, psychological warfare. Broadcast chaos. And they were heading for city airspace. Ward, you need to disengage, Greer's voice buzzed. This has escalated to Homeland Command. I'm already engaged, he replied. Then you're expendable. She clicked off again. Evelyn looped under the drone, climbed into its blind spot, and released her last missile. It hit the undercarriage dead center. The drone exploded. But the payloads were already free. In the tower. Logan cursed. They weren't meant to shoot. They were meant to confuse response teams. Flood the comms net. Make every radar show dozens of false positives. Greer muttered, so they knew our frequencies. Logan turned to him, sharp. No, Commander. They knew Evelyn's. Greer looked stricken. She was the target? Not the woman, Logan said. The plane. The data hub she built inside the Tiger. They've been listening through her. For weeks. Evelyn rolled through the remains of the burning drone. Flaming shrapnel rained behind her. The Tiger was bleeding coolant, and the right wing flap stuttered. She ignored it. The swarm was ahead, descending. 1 missile left. But it was too wide a spread. She had another idea, a desperate one. She keyed into the Tiger's spoof beacon system. The one she'd rigged from the busted NATO Intel drone. It worked like a magnet. She reconfigured it. To act like bait. She fed the swarm her own signature, resolution and reflection. The gliders turned, every one of them. They swarmed toward her, blinking. With recognition of the modified frequency. Evelyn angled the Tiger down, toward the sea. Wind screamed. Velocity max. Altimeter spun. At 10,000 feet. She ejected the decoy pod from the Tiger's undercarriage, a scrap relay laced with amplifiers. The pod exploded. So did the gliders. In a synchronized detonation that lit the sky like a second dawn. Evelyn screamed through the clouds, pulled the Tiger up on a tailspin that nearly blacked her out. She survived. Barely. Back at base. No one spoke, but the horizon had cleared, and Evelyn Ward flew home. We're just past halfway. Drop a, if you'd trust a pilot over a protocol. Part 6 coming next. The base was silent when Evelyn landed. Not a reverent kind of silence, a tense, uncertain one. The kind that follows a wildfire or a prison break, the kind of stillness that knows something bigger just shifted. The Tiger rolled to a halt, its engines coughing as the turbines spun down. Black smoke drifted from under the right wing. One landing strut sagged like a bent knee. Evelyn popped the canopy, climbed down with her harness still half fastened, and dropped into a crouch. Her knees ached, her jaw throbbed. The silence pressed in, cold open hook. When Evelyn stepped back onto the tarmac, her boots touched ground 5 minutes before. Homeland Security did. Backstory thread. She remembered the first time she landed. After an unsanctioned sortie. She was 19. Still training. Her instructor had blacked out mid-flight. Evelyn took the controls and brought the jet down manual landing. No assist. Instead of praise, she got demoted to ground crew for a month. The official line was, "You should have waited for orders." Today felt no different. She had saved lives, but she hadn't asked permission. Commander Greer stood on the flight line, flanked by 2 men in black suits. Homeland, no ranks, no names. Just unreadable expressions and shiny shoes that didn't belong on a runway. Evelyn walked toward them. Logan trailed behind her, tablet in hand. "Lieutenant Ward," one of the suits said, "you'll come with us." "For questioning?" "For containment." Greer didn't speak. He didn't have to. They were going to bury this inciting incident. Evelyn sat in a steel chair inside a white room, no windows. One table. One overhead camera. "Explain your modifications to aircraft 2215C. The taller agent said, "It's an F-5. I rebuilt it from decommissioned parts and out-of-circuit avionics." "On whose authority?" "Mine." That aircraft contained a hybrid Intel hub made from restricted drone components. It also contained the only countermeasure that worked against your compromised swarm. The agent leaned forward. "We need access to your tech stack, your notes, your logs." Evelyn stared. "You think I logged any of it?" They didn't laugh. Crisis and reveal. After 6 hours of interrogation, the door opened. Logan walked in, suit jacket gone. Sleeves rolled. "I'll take it from here," she told the agents. They hesitated, then left. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "You've got clearance to pull Homeland rank now," Logan said. "Not Homeland. Higher. We need to talk off-grid." She slid a small device across the table. It blinked blue. "A scrambler?" "A silencer." "We've got 5 minutes." Evelyn leaned forward. "What the hell's going on?" Logan pulled up an encrypted file. The drones weren't just rogue. They were part of a test program, Black Tier, asset denial protocols. Someone tried to trigger a false flag crisis to push a private security contract through federal approval. Someone inside, multiple someones, and they used my plane. Because it wasn't on their radar. You weren't supposed to matter. Evelyn sat back. "That's what makes me dangerous." Logan nodded. "You built a ghost plane that outran classified airspace intel. You outmaneuvered drones that cost more than our entire base. And you did it with tools nobody respects. I didn't do it for them, I know. But now they know who you are." Evelyn crossed her arms. "So what happens next?" "That depends on you." Logan reached into her satchel and pulled out a black envelope, unmarked. Evelyn opened it. Inside, a badge, silver, hexagonal, no logo. No agency. Just a serial number and the phrase, "Authority unseen, resolution and reflection." Back at the hangar, under the cover of darkness, Evelyn unbolted the Tiger's side panel. She removed the core flight drive her custom motherboard laced with jury-rigged relays and encryption loops, and packed it into a foam-lined case. She wasn't giving it to anyone. She was upgrading it. Because if this was the start of something bigger, if shadow games were unfolding across the sky, then she wasn't going to watch from the ground. She'd already proven her worth. Now, she was building something better, and she wouldn't fly alone next time. We're past the halfway point. Drop A if you've ever been underestimated and still came out ahead. Part 7 is next. Evelyn woke before dawn, not from sleep. From stillness. There were no sirens, no buzzing coms, no warbird engines overhead. Just the echo of wind scraping across the empty airstrip, and the low hum of electricity running through systems she'd built herself. She sat up on the cot in Hangar Bay 9, rubbing her neck. Her jacket patched, oil-stained, and stitched with her father's unit Crestley folded on the crate beside her. Cold open hook. Before the sun rose, Evelyn Ward had already chosen exile over silence and rewired a stolen datacori to transmit. In bursts too faint for satellites to notice. Backstory thread. She used to fear going off -grid. In the early days. When she first transferred into support units, the idea of vanishing from official logs felt like vanishing from reality. Like dying. Slowly in obscurity. But now she saw freedom in it. She wasn't hiding. She was calibrating. Logan met her just after sunrise, wearing civvies black jeans, gray shirt, no insignia. She carried a flight case and a folder sealed in red plastic. "You really going through with this?" Logan asked. Evelyn didn't look up. "We both are." Logan tossed the folder onto the workbench. "This contains 6 ghost frequencies, 3 airfield clearance codes, and 1 semi-legal registration for a strike vehicle that doesn't exist. You sure you don't want a team?" "I'll build one when I get there." "There's no there yet, Evelyn. Just coordinates and a name." Evelyn finally looked up. "Then we start with a name." Inciting incident. The name was Demon. Sky, not a pilot, a code writer, ex-military contractor, architect of the original override protocols embedded in the drone swarm. Officially disappeared 4 years ago. Unofficially still active. Quietly selling embedded firmware access to anyone who could pay. Logan slid a satellite printout across the table. "This was taken 6 days ago in Zabriskie Ridge. That shape in the sand? It's a prototype test pad. Too small for a full drone. Perfect size for a long-range intercept shuttle." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "So they're testing manned vessels with autonomous control overlays." "Exactly. And no one's doing a damn thing about it." Logan said nothing. She didn't have to. Crisis and reveal. 3 hours later, Evelyn climbed into a different cockpit. Not the Tiger, that had been hidden buried beneath crates and locked behind 6 layers of plausible deniability. This one was sleeker. Gray composite, twin turbine intake. Markings removed. She'd rebuilt this craft over 3 weekends with salvaged parts from a decommissioned recon interceptor and a downed UAV prototype. Cody name, Sable 1. It wasn't meant to look fast. It was meant to look forgotten. Logan handled tower spoof. Evelyn handled everything else. They launched at 12:47 p.m. Flew low through thermal shadows and climbed above commercial traffic lanes just south of Utah airspace. Ahead, nothing but static. The ridge came into view by dusk. An old CUM station. Burnt out. Reactivated. 2 hangars. No flags. No guards. Just security drones hovering near entry points like wasps. Evelyn circled once. "Think Sky's here?" Logan asked. "No," Evelyn said. "Then why stop here?" "To see who shows up to stop me." They landed under cover of fading light. The wind howled through cracked concrete and rusted fences. Evelyn moved first. Logan at her back. Inside the first hangar, nothing but crates. Inside the second, something else. A drone chassis. Half disassembled. Advanced. Sleeker than anything Evelyn had seen outside Black Budget Archives. She approached. Slowly. Its camera eye flickered. Still powered. She knelt, touched the fuselage, and a voice echoed overhead. "Nice of you to visit." The lights blinked on. Demon Sky stood on the upper catwalk, flanked by 2 bodyguards in civilian garb. He looked nothing like his file. Younger, smarter, harsher, and smiling. "Evelyn Ward," he said. "You're a hell of a problem." "You built code that almost caused a mass casualty event." He shrugged. "I built code. Someone else misused it. You sold it. I licensed it. Big difference." Logan raised her weapon. Sky didn't flinch. "You don't get it, do you?" he said. "They used you to test it. Because you're still trying to play fair." Evelyn stepped forward. "Then maybe it's time I stopped." Resolution and reflection. The standoff ended without bullets. Barely. Logan downloaded the drone's firmware. Sky let them walk out alive, either overconfident or already covered. Back in the air, Evelyn reviewed the code and found her own signature from the Tiger systems, embedded. They had been watching her longer than she realized. But now she had a map, coordinates, data traces, access points. And for the first time, Evelyn Ward wasn't chasing ghosts. She was hunting. Things just shifted. Drop a, if you know what it's like to take the fight to them. Part 8 drops next. The night sky outside the ridge glowed with residual heat from the dying sun. Evelyn and Logan stood on the wind-scarred helipad, silent, while the downed communications tower flickered behind them like a ghost from another era. There was no celebration, no. Lines drawn, no handcuffs clicked. Demon Sky had walked away, unbothered, but he had left them a parting gift, a warning hidden in the code, a breadcrumb embedded in Evelyn's own modifications. He wanted them to follow it. Cold open hook. Evelyn Ward had decoded enemy firmware, uncovered a buried access point, and mapped an illegal test zone before midnight. Backstory thread. Evelyn always thought revenge was beneath her. That was before. Her aircraft was used as a carrier for someone else's war, before they took the thing she loved, the sky, and turned it into a surveillance arena, before they buried her in layers of bureaucracy, and forgot who built the plane that saved 200 lives. Now? Now she wanted them to remember. They flew silent for 4 hours. Low altitude. Nav lights off, countermeasures prepped but cold. Logan stayed quiet in the rear cabin, sifting through data dumps from Sky's prototype. Evelyn piloted manually. She trusted her reflexes more than any auto-nav. At 0320 hours, they reached the eastern Nevada flatlands. Nothing on maps. No heat signals. But Evelyn saw the pattern: 2 parallel runoffs, angled away from a natural rock. Shelf, displaced sand, scorched brush. This was a launch pad, she said. Not anymore, Logan replied, checking her reader. Everything's been shut down. Evelyn narrowed her eyes. Then they moved it. Inciting incident. The data string led them to a rail line unmarked, overgrown, but still warm. A mobile platform. Evelyn smirked. They're building carriers, land-based, entire airbases on rail. Logan's jaw tightened. And hiding the launches inside civilian transport infrastructure. They followed the rail west, passing 3 fake depots, until they reached an isolated canyon wired with relay dishes and camouflage towers. A shimmer in the dark, heat signature, a convoy, just ahead. 8 vehicles, 2 trailers, 1 unmarked. Flatbed with what looked like folded wings beneath a tarp. Evelyn adjusted their heading. This is where we make noise. Crisis and reveal. They landed 1 hill over, too risky to engage airborne. Evelyn grabbed the MP, Ken, a prototype she'd built from stripped microwave, arrays and salvaged targeting gear, and slung it over her shoulder. Logan brought the drone. Jammer. Together, they hiked. By the time they reached the ridge above the convoy, the lead vehicle had stopped. Men emerged, armed, scanning the perimeter with night vision lenses. Not military, Logan whispered. Not civilian either, Evelyn replied. They're private, contractors. They crawled into position. Below, a technician climbed onto the flatbed and peeled back the tarp. Evelyn's heart stopped. It wasn't a drone. It was a cockpit. Single-seat stealth airframe with no registration, no flags, and no cockpit window. Remote pilot? Logan asked. Evelyn shook her head. That's not remote. That's human interface buried in code. She aimed the EMP. Fired. The ridge lit up. The blast crippled the platforms. Electronics, but not the guards. Shouts erupted. Gunfire sprayed upward. Evelyn pulled Logan back. We move, now. They darted across the slope as bullets struck stone behind them. Logan dropped a signal flare custom rigged to broadcast interference pulses. Down below, the guards scrambled to reboot the rig, but it was too late. The data drive inside the prototype had started to purge from her wristband. Evelyn pinged the backup drone, still circling above. It dove. Cameras rolled. Resolution. Reflection. They made it back to Sable 1 by dawn. The footage had captured everything: faces, gear, equipment IDs. Enough to expose, or to paint a bigger target. On Evelyn's back, she sat in the cockpit as the sun rose, hands trembling for the first time in days. They're not scared of oversight, she said. They're scared of exposure, Logan nodded. Then let's give them something to be afraid of, Evelyn smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind worn by people who had stopped asking for permission. The net is tightening. Drop A if you've ever had to expose the truth alone. Part 9 is up next. The sun broke over the flat desert in a slow crawl, but Evelyn was already miles ahead, flying west beneath radar and over silence. Sable One's engines thrummed like a heartbeat stitched to her nerves. Her eyes were dry. She hadn't blinked. In 20 minutes, the stolen data was safe. But safety was temporary, because now they had names. Cold Open Hook, Evelyn Ward, had seen the future of warfare, and it was already deployed. Backstory thread. When Evelyn was 14, she rewired her father's landline phone to listen to CB radio frequencies, not to spy. To understand. There were voices out there, mechanics, truckers, old vets that told stories about a world where nothing was permanent, but everything was connected. That's where she first heard the phrase, "The sky doesn't lie." She didn't fully grasp it then. But today, looking down at the maps, the data trails, and the denial patterns, she did. The sky told the truth, but it needed someone to read it out loud. Inciting incident. From the stolen drive came a string of files encrypted, fragmented. Logan had cracked only half by the time they reached the coast. Inside were briefings, flight tests, dates, signatures, but more disturbing videos, drone footage of other rogue encounters. None of them were stopped because Evelyn had been the prototype. Response. Not the outlier, the lab rat. They've been staging incursions for 18 months, Logan muttered. Different regions, always with a media blackout, always with a civilian angle, but never exposed. Evelyn's stomach twisted. They were testing narrative control. They were testing public reaction to untraceable threats. And now they know exactly how to cover it up. Crisis and reveal. The last file was marked with a red tag, Mantis Shield. Inside, specs for a high-altitude intercept drone capable of emitting signal scrambles, heat masking, and low-yield kinetic deployment. Code written in part by Demon Sky, but the directive signature and execution order was from someone higher. General Morrison, Logan read aloud. She was retired 3 years ago. Not retired, Evelyn said. Shifted. That signature means she's still active. Deep Unit. There was an address. A facility marked Outpost C7 just outside of Cheyenne Mountain. They didn't hesitate. The base was unofficial. No gate. Just a mountain road half buried under rock slides, leading to what looked like an old mine. But as they approached on foot, motion sensors clicked. Doors opened. Someone had left it unlocked. Waiting for them. The interior was nothing like a mine. Smooth walls. Fiber optics. Active systems. They descended 4 levels before hitting an open vault. Inside, racks of prototype gear, pilot suits, drone, shells, and a single command chair with a feed line connected to satellite. Uplink. Evelyn stepped forward. On the screen, Morrison. Live. You came, the general said. Evelyn didn't blink. You used my aircraft to wage a hidden war. I used an opportunity. You staged false threats to prepare for real ones. No, Evelyn said. You became the threat, Morrison smiled. And now you're in my system. The doors locked. Resolution and reflection. Logan ripped open a panel. Manual overrides buried. This place was designed as a trap. Evelyn accessed the uplink terminal. Typed fast. Rerouted power through the core heat exchange. The lights flickered. The feed glitched. Morrison's voice wavered. You can't. Stop the program. Evelyn looked up. I don't need to stop it. I just need to show it. She hit transmit. The files launched through a piggyback node she'd coded days ago, broadcasted on public servers. The world would see. The truth was airborne now. And Evelyn Ward was no longer a name they could bury. If you've ever fought back with nothing but proof, drop a. Part 10 coming up next. Sirens didn't sound. Not at first, but the signal Evelyn released from Outpost C7 rippled outward, like a sonic boom through classified networks, scrambling firewalls, triggering dormant alerts, and setting off phone calls between people who thought they'd never have to speak to each other again. Her face lit up. Global data boards. Her signal set off the right kind of panic. And the wrong kind of attention. Cold open hook. Evelyn Ward didn't just broadcast the truth. She blew the lid off the single most secret drone testing program in the hemisphere. Backstory. Thread. Evelyn learned young that sometimes truth was heavier than bullets. She remembered the day her mother read out a classified field report in front of a congressional review panel, knew what would happen. Did it anyway. They stripped her rank the next morning, but she saved 30 medics from an ambush. Now Evelyn was walking in that same shadow. Only this time, the war was in the air and she was the only one flying against it. They made it out of Outpost C7 by rerouting a manual fuse line. Logan wired the doors. Evelyn stalled the satellite uplink with a junk burst that faked a thermal overload. By the time reinforcements arrived, they were gone, flying low and cold across the Colorado Basin. Evelyn didn't speak. She was watching the feed, watching the reactions. Inciting incident. Within 30 minutes, 5 independent outlets had received portions of the leaked footage, logs, design files. A whistleblower group flagged her as Source Omega. By dawn, Evelyn's name trended globally, but the celebration was short, because by mid-morning, the narrative shifted. Fake headlines, photoshopped briefings, claims that Evelyn had stolen military tech, endangered lives, compromised counter-terror. Ops, she's being recast, Logan said. They're laundering your signal through a media loop. Then we go faster. Crisis and reveal. Evelyn pulled up a location from the stolen drive. Site K listed only once. No coordinates, just a reference. Under Alton Grid. She knew what that meant. Alton Grid was a nickname for an abandoned communications array, buried beneath a cold storage facility in Kansas, technically offline. In reality, it served as a data cache relay for off-book intel movements. It was also the only location tagged Morrison plus Sky, direct oversight. They landed 2 states over, rented a truck, drove cross-country with a false license plate and a drone, jammer humming in the back seat. They reached the site at 2:17 a.m. It looked like nothing, a warehouse. Evelyn saw the M flickers, and she knew. It was alive. Inside, rows of servers lined a concrete vault, low hums. No personnel. Until they reached the back, a console, and a screen. Demon Sky, live feed. You really don't stop, he said. Evelyn didn't answer. Logan leveled her pistol. Where's Morrison? Sky smiled. Gone, folded back into the mud. Next version of oversight, but you're too late. Too late for what? Evelyn asked. You thought the drones were the threat. He gestured behind him. The screen split. 4 other faces appeared, civilian suits. Corporate backgrounds. Former defense officials. You're not fighting a weapon, Sky said. You're fighting a system. And it already moved past you. Resolution and reflection. Evelyn stared at the screen. Each face looked calm. Each face had signed something that made her plain a target. I don't need to beat your system, she said. I just need to outlive it. She walked to the console, plugged in the final relay, and triggered a purge. The Alton Grid collapsed in 7 minutes. Every local node. Every satellite link. Gone. The lights died. And for the first time in months, Evelyn felt still. No more running. Just one last flight. Only 3 chapters remain. Drop a if you're ready to finish this. Part 11 is coming. The wind over Antarctica was a living thing, merciless, cutting, and endless. At 68,000 feet, Evelyn's breath frosted on the inside of her helmet visor. The prototype jet groaned under the pressure, but it held steady, gliding across the void. Like a ghost bird on black ice. She could see the glint of the Echo Frost facility below. A single hatch on the glacier's surface was opening, and from that hatch rose something massive, cold open. Hook. Evelyn Ward crossed the bottom of the world in a jet that didn't exist, to face a weapon no one would admit was real. Backstory. Thread. There were things you could train for altitude sickness, pressure resistance, wind shear. And then there were the things you only survived by trusting your bones. Evelyn had been flying since she was 16. But she hadn't flown not like this until the Tiger, until the lie, until the fallout. Now, every control she touched felt personal. She was no longer piloting a craft. She was commanding a truth the world had tried to bury. Inciting incident. The aircraft lifting from Echo Frost was an unmanned stealth drone, or so it was meant to appear. But Evelyn's scans told a different story. Micropulses from the cockpit shell. Biofeedback indicators. There was someone inside, and they were using the drone's full AI suite to mask their presence. She banked left. Logan. Confirm. Thermal reads faint human signature, came the reply. It's piloted, but the AI is doing the flying. So they're testing human override in an AI envelope, and it's locking onto you. Crisis and reveal. The enemy drone shifted. Midair. A maneuver no machine would ever choose. Too risky, but a human? A desperate one? Absolutely. Evelyn twisted her jet into a high bow arc, skimming the upper edge of the troposphere. The cold crushed the cockpit, but she didn't blink. Below her, the drone spun. A single missile launched. She dropped, flared, and countered with a decoy flare. The missile curved. Hit nothing. She pulled tighter on the vapor cone and returned fire. Her own missile struck the drone's wing. It didn't go down. It adjusted. Logan, tell me I'm wrong. You're not. It's using your old flight data. My what? Telemetry from the Tiger. Someone fed it your historical flight patterns, your evasions, your targeting logic. Then it already knows what I'll do next. Evelyn gritted her teeth. Time to improvise. She yanked hard left and powered into a nosedive. The prototype jet screamed. Wind tore over the frame like 1,000 knives. She let it fall. 10,000 feet. 15. The drone followed. Then she rolled inverted and flipped into a stall turn. The drone overshot. She had it. She locked on and hesitated. Because she saw it. The face in the canopy. It was Demon Sky. Resolution and reflection. Evelyn, you have a shot. Take it. Logan shouted. But Evelyn froze. Not from fear, from clarity, because she saw what Sky was doing. He wasn't trying to win. He was trying to end it. She flipped the switch. Not fire. EMP. It detonated at 300 meters. The drone shuddered. Systems died. It spiraled. Crashing into the ice in a white blossom of snow and flame. Evelyn pulled up. Barely, but she lived. And so did Logan. And Demon Sky? That was uncertain. They landed at a forward base in McMurdo Sound 3 hours later. No one questioned them, because by then, the world was already watching. Evelyn's signal had gone viral. People were asking questions. And for once, those questions had names. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story. Smoke curled from the data racks and ribbons, soft as breath. Sparks spat from fried relay conduits. The Alton grid was gone, burned from the inside out, its lifelines choked by Evelyn's kill sequence. What once quietly mirrored off the books, Drone Protocols, was now a hollow tomb beneath the Kansas plains. She and Logan stood ankle-deep in scorched wire casings and shattered fiber channels. The world above spun on, unaware, but the world below had just lost its backbone. Cold open hook. At 3:12 a.m., Evelyn Ward dismantled a shadow communications nexus with a keystroke and knew exactly who would come for her next. Backstory. Thread. Some part of her had expected to feel more triumphant, but her mother used to say, the most dangerous victories come dressed like relief. That's when your guard drops. That's when they hit back. And Evelyn wasn't dropping anything. She didn't feel relief. She felt hunted. They resurfaced just before dawn. A stolen jeep hidden beneath a grain silo carried them west. No flight, no digital trails. Just open road and old maps. The next safe house was a decommissioned radio observatory in Arizona, abandoned since 2012. But patched into a low-orbit satellite, Evelyn had once used to test comms encryption. A fallback, a hideout, but mostly a last step, because there were only two things left now: the final drone and the person funding it. Inciting incident. By noon, they were inside the dish's central chamber. Evelyn powered up the relay she'd hidden years ago inside. The backup coolant duct. It still worked. Logan scrubbed the last of the Alton data, finding one final breadcrumb. Project Echo Frost, a command node. Antarctic satellite coverage. Blind. From space. Low orbit shielding, and one unmarked facility, 82S 56. Evelyn stared. Who builds a launch hub in the Ross Ice Shelf? No one, Logan said. Unless they don't want satellites tracking payloads. So it's operational? It's launching in 3 days. Crisis and reveal. Evelyn grabbed the encrypted sat phone and dialed an old contact. He picked up. On the third ring. Didn't expect to hear from you, Ward. Still owe me a favor, Razor. A pause. Damn, you're calling it in. I need a long-range craft. Off books. Cold start capable. He whistled. Only got one bird like that. Still got the hangar at Topaz Field? You're serious. Send the access code. We're wheels up in 4 hours. She hung up before he could say no. Topaz Field wasn't on FAA records anymore. Buried in the Nevada flats. It had once been a test strip for high-altitude recon craft. Now it looked like junk. Which was perfect, inside Hangar C, beneath a rusted tarp, sat Razor's prize. A prototype cold-weather interceptor with vertical lift, cloaked exhaust, and retractable wings. A ghost jet, perfect for flying into a sky that didn't want witnesses. They prepped in silence. Logan recalibrated the HUD. Evelyn ran diagnostics with the same quiet resolve she always had. But there was something new in her hands now. A tremor. Small. Just enough to betray the weight of what was coming. This could kill us, Logan said, tightening a strap on the flight harness. Evelyn didn't look up. Then let's make it count. They launched at 20:34 hours. Cut west. Climbed fast. At 60,000 feet, Evelyn throttled down to conserve fuel. Logan encrypted the nav data. Below them, the curvature of the Earth began to show. And ahead ice. Cold. Blank. Endless. Resolution and reflection. The satellite feed Logan jacked into gave them visuals. A white fortress carved into ice, mostly underground. One launch silo. One elevated tower. And one heat signature active inside the control block. Only one operator, Logan murmured. No, Evelyn said. One pilot. Because Project Echo Frost wasn't just a launch base. It was a single man. Autonomous test, and whoever was in there was airborne already. The end is in sight. Drop a if you've followed her this far. Part 12 is next. The morning light over McMurdo Station hit the snow like a cathedral spotlight, sharp, clean, and absolute. Evelyn stood alone at the edge of the runway, the jagged remains of Diamond Sky's stealth drone, barely visible in the far distance where the impact had cratered the ice shelf. She hadn't. T slept. She hadn't spoken since touchdown. She just watched. Waiting to see if the world would. Cold open hook. In the hours after the most classified drone war came crashing into daylight, Evelyn Ward stood in Antarctica and waited for the silence to break. Backstory thread. She'd been underestimated before, overlooked, laughed at, shoved into hangars and asked to clean up after better-funded heroes with better pedigreed names. But today, they were saying hers on the news. Not in disgrace. In reverence. As the pilot who risked everything to expose a war that hadn't been declared. The woman who turned a scrap-labeled jet into a bullet of truth. The news feeds were chaos. Half the network spun her as a rogue operator turned whistleblower. The other half tried and failed to discredit her, but the signal she had broadcast could not be undone. The footage, the flight data, the intercepted comms, all of it had reached the public, and the public wasn't staying quiet. Inciting incident. By midday, Logan brought word. Congressional hearings have been fast-tracked. 2 major defense contractors suspended. 1 Senate intelligence chief forced into early retirement. And Demon Sky? Missing, presumed dead, but Evelyn didn't believe it, because someone had recovered a partial feed from the crash site. 30 seconds before impact, an ejection beacon fired. Too low for retrieval, too intentional to ignore. Crisis and reveal. That night, while the rest of McMurdo slept, Evelyn sat alone in the comms room. She ran the last 10 seconds of her impulse frame by frame, analyzed angles, calculated G-force, and saw it barely, a flash of white in the snow, distinct from the fireball. A capsule. Not for survival. For transfer. Logan entered. You thinking what I'm thinking? Evelyn nodded. Double quotes. He planned it. Logan added, he wanted us to win just enough so he could disappear. Or start again. Resolution and reflection. 2 weeks later, Evelyn stood on a stage in Washington. A hearing room packed with generals, analysts, journalists, and more cameras than she could count. She wore her father's patch, her mother's bracelet, and her own truth. They asked questions. She answered all of them. Then they asked if she'd return to duty. She said no, because this wasn't about service anymore. It was about accountability, and she wasn't done. Back at the base, tucked inside a new hangar, the Tiger sat under a fresh coat of paint. Not restored. Revered. And beside it, blueprints. For something better, a new airframe. With old soul. Evelyn looked to the sky. She didn't speak, but she was already flying again. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.